So you've discovered saddle hunting, and man, do you love it. I mean, you can get in any tree. It's way safer because you're always tethered in, all the way up, all the way down, tied in the whole time. Less clanking, a lot less bulk, in some cases some less weight. I mean, it's awesome, right? You love it. Well, except for one thing that hardly anybody ever talks about, and that's the fact that after a little bit, there's a lot of us that have experienced foot pain. I mean, like drastic, drop you to your knees, make you cry foot pain. Some of it, plantar fasciitis. So we're going to have some talks today with one of the area's leading podiatrists and talk about boot choices, platform choices, how they contribute to that factor, and what we can do to get rid of it as saddle hunters. Stick around, it's going to be a good one today. Okay, so we're here with Dr. Appan. He and his wife own probably one of the largest podiatry clinics here in southeast Missouri. Very successful, long history of serving people here in the area. And I've actually been a patient of Dr. Appan's, and my oldest son has as well. And Dr. Appan, you're a hunter as well, right?
I do.
So
I am.
We reached out to Dr. Appan because of the issue that we're dealing with today, which is a lot of saddle hunters like ourselves deal with plantar fasciitis. And the way that I contracted it, Dr. Appan was asking me, I don't think you've ever seen a saddle platform.
I have not. I'm kind of anxious to see what you guys are dealing with here.
So the difference is, to explain real quick to Dr. Appan, is we stand on a really small little platform and we face the tree. So as most tree stand hunters, you're this way, you're kind of sitting on a seat and you're facing out. Well, we kind of hang in a cloth, what we call a saddle, and our tether's on the tree, and we face out, and a lot of us either sit where we lengthen the tether so that you actually kind of are in a sitting position, but your feet are resting on this, or a lot of us are what we call leaners, where we tighten the tether up a little bit, and then we're leaning, and this is the way that I dealt with plantar fasciitis. We lean on, and this is not the platform, let's be clear here, this is not the platform that gave me plantar fasciitis. This is an example platform of one I had in stock. But so no, we're not throwing shade at this. You guys are going to realize this is a trophy line EDP. Not throwing shade at trophy line, but this is an example. I would lean with all my weight on that little bitty surface area.
Right? Kind of like the rungs of a ladder.
Exactly. And so we're hunting out there for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, and a lot of us transition from tree stand hunting into saddle hunting, and we try to bring those boots with us. Well, I brought my lacrosse, LaGrange rubber boots, not a stiff sole at all. So you're standing there and your boots are just going like that. So that's the issue we're dealing with.
Sure.
And a lot of the people in the community have reached out to me because they know I suffered from plantar fasciitis. That's the reason we're doing this video. And do you think that would be a contributing factor?
Oh, absolutely. I think that could be. Absolutely. Now, that's kind of a unique design by all means.
Right.
My hunting, I'm getting up in a deer shack and sitting there in an office chair looking out windows. And but I was thinking about this going into that. Even with that being said, I know that when we start the season out, and like you say, it kind of depends on, I guess, where you're hunting at. If it's cold versus fairly nice climates or whatever, not too cold, what have you. The gear, and I don't know how long you guys are. I mean, I'm sure you're preparing all throughout the whole season, getting things ready, cutting branches and getting things set up. But the reality is, how much time do you spend in your boots? You buy these things right out of a new set every year, and the next thing you know, hey, it's hunting season. We're out here. I think a lot of times people get that plantar fasciitis when things aren't broke in well,
right.
or in this case, I've also seen guys have issues with regards to things that are broken down badly and not giving them enough support and so forth. But I can totally see where that would exacerbate that.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got, for me, I'm probably an average sized guy. I'm 190.
Yeah.
And you throw in our gear and everything else. Now you're probably approaching 200 or over, and you've got every bit of that 200 pounds.
And that's exactly right.
On that much weight.
That's exactly right, and to a certain extent, weight definitely in a traditional standpoint, plantar fasciitis. Heavier you are, more force on these feet, the more strain on that plantar fascial band. And the reality is, when those things become inflamed, as you know, that's hard to get that to calm down, or it can be. And the reality is, I think it's just all about, in this case, especially with your hunting stand, probably doing some preparing before you go out there with that stuff.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. So for those guys who haven't experienced plantar fasciitis like me and dealt with it on a continual basis like you, what is plantar fasciitis? And so let's start there. What is plantar fasciitis?
Plantar fasciitis is inflammation of your plantar fascial band, which is the band that courses from the ball of your foot all the way to your heel. Traditionally, you get really most of your symptoms in the heel portion of that, right, although you can get it throughout. But once that band becomes inflamed, it's all about trying to calm that down. And calming that down, I guess, from a medical perspective, is done in a lot of different fashions, from medicines to ice to physical therapy to certain inserts can definitely alleviate the symptoms associated with that.
Yep.
Surgery, I guess, very few need it, but when it does have to happen, you can release that ligament and eradicate the pull on it that is contributing to it.
Yep. I know when I had it, you know, I've told people that they've asked me about it because they contact me and they're like, this is probably some of the most debilitating pain I've ever had. And, you know, I'm like, I can take a lot of pain. When I was in college, I was playing a pickup basketball game, and we were playing on a wet asphalt court after work, and I was leading a 3-on-1 break. I looked to the left, passed to the right, and planted my foot to do that. Well, when I did that, my feet came out from that wet court, and I put my arm back to catch my fall. Well, this elbow ended up about there. I didn't cry. I'm not saying that, you know, I just didn't cry. I'm like, I looked at the guys, I'm like, I think we need to go to the ER.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't, you know, they eventually, but it took so long to get me in, they eventually had to give me morphine. So, but because I was starting to go into a state of shock. But it never, I can take pain. With plantar fasciitis, I almost cried going from my bedroom to the kitchen. I mean, it was the point where it's the most painful thing I've ever had. It was way more painful than this.
First couple steps out of bed in the morning is pretty rough on the
Oh my God. It was like literally wanted to cry.
Oh,
I wanted to get down and crawl to the kitchen instead of walk.
Well, it's what we call post-Potic Discinesia. You wake up out of bed in the morning and these feet have been relaxed all night and that old band contracts, and then you stand up and put your body weight through that. In my land, you're grabbing the wall, the bed, trying to get to the bathroom, thinking, oh my land, if the house was on fire, I couldn't get out.
You described it perfectly. So let's say, some of these users come down with it. You know, some of our people, subscribers and the people in the community come down with it. What's some of the best ways to work around it or get through it?
Right. I guess in my world, number one, it's one thing to treat symptoms. And symptoms, you're talking about anti-inflammatories, medicines like ibuprofen, Motrin, naproxen, prescription type medicines, steroids. Sometimes they have to be utilized. Ice is very handy, to be quite honest with you. Nobody likes putting ice on their foot, but the reality is ice does calm down that inflammation. We'll employ steroid shots, cortisone shots when these things get really, really out of control to calm them down. But again, that's treating symptoms. Then you start talking about what's causing the symptoms. Well, in your case here, it's more of a pressure phenomenon.
Right.
And again, you know, when you think about hanging in a sling with your feet down for hours on end, you know, right out of the gates, I'll tell you, I know that you start, when feet are in dependency towards the ground, they start swelling.
Yep.
I mean, it's just everybody's does.
Right.
Well, you guys are suspended up there forever today, and then you're pushing to get leverage, and so what happens when you go to shoot? Are you getting up on that stand?
Most of it will just pivot, and
so you're really on your
I'm still at a 45-degree angle, even when I'm pivoting to shoot.
Really?
Sure am. Yeah.
So there's no standing up.
Now, you can. The industry has recognized this as a little bit of a problem, and some of the manufacturers are starting to come out with an angled platform on the front. So instead of just having this hard edge right here, it will actually have an angle. And there's a couple. In fact, this manufacturer has come out with an angled design. There's another one. Cruiser has come out with an angled front, and that at least gives you a 3 to 4. In the Cruiser's case, it gives you 3 to 4 inches of actual surface area to push against instead of just little razor
I would
edge.
argue that would be a better mousetrap.
Yeah.
That would be a better mousetrap.
If you're a leaner, for sure. But and then I think a lot of people are starting to realize, and we're going to talk about this later in the video, is a lot of people are pairing a very high-end quality boot with it versus what I went into it with was that Lacrosse LaGrange. It had no support. It just, it just came over from the whitetail world, walking through swamps and stuff, and you pair a boot with like a Crispy or a Kenetrek or a Zamberlan or something like that has a ton of, it's what most Western hunters are using for elk hunting and stuff.
Sure.
And it really has a whole lot better. So you got that really stiff sole, and then pair that with a broader surface area to push against.
Right.
Helps tremendously.
Yeah. That sounds exactly what I would probably recommend, and that is, it's probably a lot of your shoes too. I mean, exactly. When it comes right down to it, again, I mean, pre-season, how much are we wearing these things? Are your feet used to these things? I mean, when you go from wearing sneakers to whatever whatever you wear, wingtips, whatever, these feet kind of start developing almost a memory to those things. Then you just get a new pair of hunting boots, and my God, it's hunting season, we're out, and let's go. Well, again, things take a little time, and I can see where that would absolutely maybe contribute to a little plantar fasciitis right out of the gates.
Very much so.
So again, then you got to think about prevention, or at least reversing the mechanism what's causing it. I think that little foot plate you're talking about would be handy. They always say when you get plantar fasciitis, if you get on the WebMD and the Google and what have you, it's all about stretching. Well, to a certain extent, when you have, there's a difference between chronic and acute. It sounds like, you guys are kind of getting this in an acute setting.
Yes.
And again, it's a situation where, well, what do they say? They say stretch, got to be stretching these things. Well, it's hard to stretch when your legs are hanging down and you're getting swollen. And again, you're leaning up against that. But in all fairness, the boots, I think wearing those things regularly, probably for at least 3 to 4 weeks before you get up there, would be a handy thing to do.
Good advice. And I know one of the things that I've continued to do, this has been a couple years removed for me in my case of plantar fasciitis. I was able to overcome it, if you want to look at it that way, a couple years ago, and I still regularly, I'm fortunate enough, I work out of my house, I have a wraparound desk in my lower level of the house, and I keep a baseball underneath my desk, and I just literally roll it. I'll switch feed, and I'll try to roll 3 or 4 minutes here, 3 or 4 minutes there, and an hour later I might do it again. And
perfect thing to do. Ice is the same, or a bottle of water frozen. Even
frozen
better. That way you got a little ice with it. But that helps stretch that thing out.
And I do that even today it's almost preventive maintenance.
So is it worse when you're getting down out of that tree stand?
No.
Or tree swing?
Yeah. We get down the same way. Conventionally, a lot of us get down the same way. We climb down sticks, just like you would if you had a hang on and 4 sticks. We get down the same way. A lot of us nowadays have gone to rappelling down, where we actually have a 40-foot rope with us, and we just rappel down like Batman. It's freaking awesome.
Cool.
But that's the easy part, is getting down. It's more just the 2 or 3 or 4 hours that you're there, especially if you're on an edge. Is the problematic part.
I think you've kind of identified what's maybe triggering this, and again, I think it's all about trying to prophylactically prevent it. Well, how do you do that? Well, again, I think the shoes. I think I love the idea of having them almost like a foot peg or something on that. Not so much a peg, but a platform or an angled surface. I think that would be very, very handy, to be quite honest with you.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Appan, I so appreciate your time today talking with us and helping be a part of this video, because this is something that's starting to plague the saddle hunting community. I've had lots of guys reach out to me, so having your expert feedback and input through here is tremendous. So thank you so much.
Right, no problem.
I appreciate it.
Hope it helps out. Happy hunting.
Okay. Well, guys, we certainly want to say thank you so much to Dr. Appleman and lending his time and expertise to this discussion. Just can't tell him how much I thank him and appreciate him enough for contributing to this video. I've got a ton of personal experience in that, but I definitely wanted to bring in that professional factor into the mix. But let's get into my personal experience a little bit, because I'm telling you what, when I said it was the most debilitating pain I've ever had, I wasn't kidding. And there's a lot of contributing factors. We've already discussed that. Let me go into my personal experience. You saw in the beginning intro of this video, those are the boots that I was wearing at the time. Those Lacrosse LaGrange rubber boots, no support. I mean, they were great whitetail hunting, right? When I used to hunt out of a hang-on, 4-stick, screw-in steps, a climber for gosh, over a decade probably. I went in with a Lone Wolf hand climber, and I always wore those boots. And then when I tried to bring them in and transition into the saddle hunting community and saddle hunting world, they just didn't cut it. And I had to go to, these are Kenetreks. Am I sponsored by Kenetrek? Am I affiliated with them? Not at all, not in the least. I bid on these boots at a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation banquet. They were, put them up for auction, a $400 winning bid got them, which was a heck of a deal, so I snatched them up. And they have been a lifesaver to me. I hear a lot of great things about Crispies. You'll see that mentioned over and over and over on the boards when people experience these challenges of, transitioning from the whitetail world and they need a better boot to be a saddle hunter. And while we're on that topic, there's two things I want to cover. One is I'm predominantly a leaner, and that's where you're going to run into the majority of your problems in this scenario, and developing foot pain and plantar fasciitis and all the things that are exacerbated with the rubber boots. So if you're a sitter, my gosh, you can probably get by with a pair of Crocs, right? Foam flip-flops. I mean, you're just not putting the pressure on there. Now, do you still need a decent boot? I would argue, yeah. Because here's why. All the years that I was a tree stand hunter, which decades and decades, right? Because I've been hunting since 1990 as a mobile hunter. We sit like this in a tree stand. And you're sitting, you're not putting, there's no pressure on my feet, right? I can lift them up. I can hold them like this for a while. If my core is strong enough, I can sit without my feet even planted, right? There's not a lot of pressure on your feet when you're sitting. I get it. There comes a time though when you have to just change your position, right? You get bored, your butt starts hurting, blood flow, whatever, right? The pressure points just get to be too much. And even as a stand hunter, what do? A tree stand hunter. Even if you're sitting on a tree stand seat, you eventually get tired of it and you stand up, right? And I don't want to get myself out of frame of the camera. I don't know how much room I've got, but you get the picture. You alternate, stand, sitting, stand, sitting. Well, even if you're a sitter in the saddle world, at some point, you're probably going to get sick and tired of being in that sitting position, and you're going to stand out, right? And that's where you're going to get yourself in trouble. So I highly recommend Kenetreks, Crispies. I've got a buddy, Chris Leopard, who swears by Zamberlan. I never even heard of it till he started wearing it, but for my take on it, it's a really good quality boot, just like Kenetrek and Crispy. Bottom line, get you some good boots. These boots I actually ran into the Kenetrek booth while I was at the Archery Trade Association show this year, just milling around, meeting some old friends, and I got to talking about those guys with my experience, and they showed me what the inside of this boot, there's a real big stiffener inside of it, and that's a piece of mud that flew off my boot, but there's a big stiffener that they put in here, and it's just a quality experience. Secondly, if you're a leaner like me, get that angled platform, whether it be a trophy line Onyx. I'm a huge fan from an angle standpoint of the Cruiser Seeker series, both the original and the Mini Seeker. I'm about to do a big review on the Mobile Hunter Treetop Mobile Sniper. Treetop Hunting Solutions Mobile Sniper. And the reason I haven't done it yet, it came out last year. The reason I haven't done it is because they had a flat platform. And I knew that at some point they would come out with an angled platform attachment for people like me, and that's just about to hit the market. I've been in contact with the owner. I'm about to get one of those and try that. But the EWO, Eastern Woods Outdoors, angled UP, those type of things you always see me using and promoting, and I'm not affiliated with anybody in the industry. There's people who think I am. I don't have a sponsor or a relationship. I've got great relationships across the industry. I'm not affiliated or sponsored or on pro staff with anybody, right? I push the products that work for me, and that angled UP, Out on the Limbs makes a slick rig or a flat bob. You can angle it down. Get those angled platforms if you're having problems with your feet. So those are the two big things that I would highly encourage you to do. What are the things that I did personally to alleviate and get to the point where I could walk again, because literally it almost ruined it went from almost ruining my hunting career to beyond that, it was ruining my standard of living. I mean, I'm not kidding you, I couldn't even hardly walk from the bedroom to the kitchen in the morning to eat breakfast without just wanting to scream or punch a wall, or I mean, so it was hard. And so here's some of the steps that I took to get rid of that. One is I quit walking barefoot around places. And man, that's hard when you're in your house to be wearing, you know, a pair of tennis shoes or something around the house when everybody else is barefoot or in sock feet or whatever. It's not natural for me. I've always been barefoot in my own house, right? But that lack of arch support was hurting me. And so for a time being, now, do I still wear tennis shoes all around my house? No, I don't. But for that 6 to 9 month period where I was going through that struggle, I did. And here's another thing I did. I got some arch supports. Now you can spend, the sky's the limit on arch supports. You could probably drop $200 or $300 or $400 on arch supports. These are $29.99 from Amazon. They're called Samurai arch supports, and I bought a couple pair to, you know, yes, you can take, they're that easy to take in and out. They don't glue down or anything, they just slip in and your body weight holds them in place. You could change them from shoe to shoe, boot to boot, whatever. I bought a couple pairs so I wouldn't constantly always having to change them around. But we'll drop a link for those arch supports, these orthotic arch supports. They had rave reviews. I heard from other people who had suffered from plantar fasciitis, had really benefited from these. $29.99. They do work, they help out a ton. Another thing that I did, this calf stretcher or foot rocker, this is $24.49, I believe, the last time I checked, $24.50 on Amazon. And we'll drop a link to it below in the description as well. We'll have two links in the description. But you can stand up against a wall in a door frame, put your heel in this cupped area right here, and just rock your just slowly go back and forth, and that helps tremendously for 25 bucks. I'm trying to give you cheap solutions that worked, and you don't need to spend a ton of money, but you do need to be diligent in your rehab. And so I wore the orthotics. I rolled the baseball time and time again. And then as I transitioned to hunting, as I got back to where, you know, I could hunt and everything, one of the things, and I kind of got the idea from this concept, right? And to this day, I still do this as preventative maintenance. I put my toes on the very edge of the platform, whether it be a platform, my one stick. You guys know I'm one sticker, but it transcends all those platforms. Put your toes on the very edge of your platform and allow your weight to sink your heels down and stretch out that Achilles tendon, stretch out that calf, get it up into your hamstrings if you can, but especially your Achilles tendon and your calf. And just stretch down, and then I would lift myself back up, and I would point my toes, keep my toes on the platform, but I would go up to my tiptoes, and I would go down. Even when I'm hunting, you know, someone's gonna say, well, man, that's a lot of movement. You can do it slow, you can do it, you know, most of us can see 40 or 50 yards or whatever, unless you're in a really tight bedding area, and I get in those too. But you've got opportunities to stretch out a couple times during a hunt, and I do that all the time. Speaking of things that people are gonna say, one of the things I know is, because I see this all the time, is when you transition from a rubber boot to a good hiking boot, like a Kenetrek or a Crispy, one of the concerns people have is, oh my God, now I'm losing my scent control. They're going to smell me in this leather boot versus they couldn't smell me before. Well, let me appease your concern and ease your mind. They were smelling you before anyway. We can argue that all day long. I can tell you what. I was good friends with a gentleman who I thought highly of, still do, right? Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. A good buddy named Todd Pett, and he moved from Michigan down to Iowa to chase monster deer, and he's documented a lot of those successes on a web series and internet series and DVDs where I first got in touch with. Well, actually, I knew him before I ever started that, but a series called White Knuckle Productions. I encourage you to go look it up on YouTube. When I started following him and getting to know him way back in the early 90s, before he ever did anything on TV or DVD, I noticed he was hunting out of leather boots, and I was like, Todd, aren't you worried they're going to smell you? And he's like, man, they're not going to smell you any more than they do with rubber boots. And he started killing booner after booner after booner on fair chase land, right? And so I was like, maybe there's something to it. And in and about that same time, I was thinking about transition to a better boot. I've got we're going to actually talk about it in a future video. We're going to have a fireside chat about my experiences with scent control. And you know, the industry can say what they want to say. They can't argue with my experience. And I've got the experience where I walked across a picked bean field, had nothing that I could have been leaving scent on, walked through puddles and everything, climbed up in the edge of the woods, looking back out the direction I walked, and I watched a black lab follow me for step, all the way to the bottom of my tree, just following my scent trail, going through puddles. I mean, it was, when that happened, I'm like, yeah, this scent control thing with rubber boots, it's bunk, it's bogus. So don't worry about scent control. With you're not losing anything by moving to the boots, and you're going to gain so much more by having a comfortable, supportive environment for your foot. Another thing I do too, when I come home after the hunt, it's been a long day, if I've been in a stand for a tree for a long time, and I settle down in my recliner and I'm watching TV, winding down before the next day, right? I will sit there and I will write the alphabet. Now, I don't do this anymore, but I used to when I was suffering really bad. I would write the alphabet with my toes. As I was sitting in the recliner with my feet propped out, I would literally go A, B, C, and I would literally make a concerted effort to write out the whole entire alphabet with both feet, and just to work them and rotate them and stretch them out before I went to bed. That was another thing I did. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I'm really am missing here. I think we about covered it all. Guys, I hope this video has really helped you a bunch, because it's kind of a subject that, I don't know if it's taboo, but nobody really talks about it. And at some point, you're probably going to experience this, and I hope to God that this video helps you not go through the pain that I did and others have as well. So I know some really good saddle hunters that have transitioned to a tree stand, back to a tree stand, because they just can't take the pain anymore. And so hopefully this helps you guys. We'll see you on the next one. God bless you.